Hi everyone, it's me Anna. Welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about books that weren't my favorite when I read them, but I thought they were unique. All these books that I'm going to be talking about in this video didn't really impress me plot-wise, but they did impress me in terms of the author's approach or the writing style, the topics they explore, and many other things, many other unique, in my opinion, things. So let's just get straight into it. And the first book on this list is Barn Burning by Haruki Murakami. Haruki Murakami is one of my favorite authors, and this particular book wasn't my favorite, I think, because it's a short story, and I think it was the first Haruki Murakami novel I read. I'm not sure about that, actually. My first Haruki Murakami novel was either The Norwegian Woods, right? Or Barn Burning. I don't remember, but I do remember discovering Haruki Murakami through the adaptation called Burning. So it's based on this short story, which is Barn Burning, and the movie just blew my mind. I am gonna get back to the adaptation later. For now, all I want to say is that that movie was my first step to kind of getting to know Haruki Murakami as an author. And after watching the movie, I googled things and found out that it's actually based on Haruki Murakami story. So I decided to give it a try and just read it because I really liked the movie. Although I didn't understand so many things while watching it for the first time, it really captured my attention and I just wanted to explore this author's work, I think. And so I read that story. It is really a short story. I read it in the ebook format and I think it was around 15 pages long or 10, around that. And so while preparing for this video, I just suddenly remembered that story, that short story, and I realized that I actually needed to reread it, because even though I remembered that it was something very unique, I forgot why I thought so. I forgot what was so unique about it and why I love that movie anyway. I need to rewatch the adaptation too, by the way. So I reread it. It is definitely something unique. Why is it unique though? Well, first of all, I think Haruki Murakami did such a great job of putting so much meaning and so many messages into such a short story. And I remember when I just finished reading it for the first time, I was like, wow, there's supposed to be some philosophical conclusion here. Like, what did I just read? Yeah, so that was the first thing that kind of impressed me. It wasn't my favorite just because I'm generally not a fan of short stories. I don't think I've ever read a short story that became one of my favorite books ever. Another thing that makes it so unique to me is how many interpretations it lets the reader have. It really depends on how you look at it. I don't even know if I want to give you the premise. I think if I give you the premise, I will just spoil everything. But again, even if you know what happens in the story, I think it's still worth reading it, trying to see something there, trying to understand things. Yeah, I think it's so interesting to hear other people's opinions on this story, because at first you don't really know what it's about. And sometimes you need to reread it. I'll go back to some certain phrases, reread them, and just kind of think, make these connections in your head, connect what the story delivers and what you feel about it. It's so fascinating that the story made me realize that while reading it, even rereading it, right, when I just reread it literally yesterday, it made me realize how my subconscious was giving me clues, how I was already understanding something but not to the fullest extent. While you're reading it, it just seems more and more disturbing by the end, but you don't know why. You just know that there's something so unsettling about this story, but you don't know what exactly. At first, it's so unclear, and only when you finish the story, I think you need to sit down and think, analyze what you just read. That's what I did, at least. I tried to actually understand what I just read and what the story was about. That's how I got my answers, if they are even answers, because like I said, there can be so many interpretations depending on the reader's perception and what the reader wants to see there, what meaning the reader is seeking. I've personally heard so many different theories, and so there are a lot of people who think it pretty straightforward but told in an interesting way still. Well, some people think that there's nothing really straightforward about it. I'm one of them. It's quite peculiar. That's, I think, the best word I can describe it with. It's so thought-provoking. And the adaptation called Burning is so good. I will say that before you watch the adaptation, I think you need to understand what kind of story you're getting into, because when I was watching it for the first time, I didn't understand a thing. I think you need to tune your mind to the right wavelength, otherwise it will just all go by. But yeah, basically it's about people, humans' behavior. Some people think that it's about murder, which is one of, I think, the straightforward theories, and it actually makes sense, I think, if you look at it from this angle. I see it as a story about people's connections, people's relationships, and the fact that we people sometimes don't see something very valuable to us until it disappears, until it's gone, and only when it's gone we start thinking about how we could have prevented it, how we could have saved it and cherished it maybe more than we did. So yeah, a very interesting one. Let's move on to the next book, which is Greek Lessons by Han Kang. I read it in 2025. All the books in this video, except for the Burning, I read in 2025. And so yeah, Greek Lessons wasn't my favorite because I didn't like the writing style applied to the characters' dialogue, not even dialogue, but to the characters' thoughts, and overall the book was just quite boring. However, I genuinely think that Greek Lessons is a very unique book. At the end of the day, I think the language topic was so beautifully tied into the story. Our main protagonist is losing the ability to speak while her life is being filled with emotional distress, and I loved how her perception of the world was described. I really loved the way the author approached this topic. It was so beautifully done. And once at a past point in our main protagonist's life, she was struggling to speak, but she was also studying French, and French was what helped her kind of and made her say a word in French out loud, because French is objectively very different from Korean. Her native language is Korean, and so now as she's struggling with verbal communication again, she decides to sign up for ancient Greek courses. First of all, because ancient Greek is considered a dead language, like nobody really uses it anymore, and that makes our main protagonist think that she probably won't have to actually speak in it. Another thing about ancient Greek that our main character likes is the structure and the strict rules that you need to follow to learn this language, and it kind of makes her feel safe. This discipline, all these rules, it provides her with a sense of stability, I guess. And just like French, ancient Greek is quite unfamiliar to her naturally. It's very different from Korean in terms of the alphabet and the structure and everything else. Apart from that, this book is about two people trying to learn to communicate with each other, trying to understand each other without this typical for us verbal communication. That is Greek Lessons, and the next book on this list is The Night Ship by Jess Kidd. This book I actually enjoyed. Like, it still wasn't my favorite, but I did enjoy it pretty much. And what's so unique about it to me personally is that, first of all, it's based on a real historical event, and I didn't know that at first. I only realized it when I was maybe halfway through and I read up on it. Turned out a pretty interesting story. So basically there's two PVs in this book. We follow two main characters. One of them is a little girl on the ship, and the other PV is a boy living with his grandfather on this island. Those PVs are set in different timelines. So in the girl's PV, while she's traveling, while she's on board, there is a mystery unfolding on this ship. Not just a mystery, but something that has to do with a sea creature, a sea monster. And our girl wants to investigate it. She wants to find the monster or kill it, or just do something about it, because it brings bad luck, as she thinks, to the ship, to the people. And the other PV, the boy living on the island, basically tells you about his life on that island, what happens there with all these people on the island, about the boy's relationship with these people, how he survives there, some family affairs. Sometimes when you're reading the boy's PV, you can see these little hints about this monster, about this sea creature that the little girl was chasing many years ago. And the book is very dreamlike. You are sometimes just lost. You don't understand if this sea creature is real or it's just a mirage, the girl's imagination. Not only does it bring bad luck, but it also hurts the people on board. It injures them. It does a lot of disgusting things. At the same time, the sea creature portrays the actual evil, and this line between the sea creature, between this mystery and the people on the ship, is very blurry. The night ship is a very mystical, real story at the same time, because it's based on a historical event, as I already told you. I've been thinking though, what is the real connection between this boy and this girl, apart from this sea creature, whether or not there is any connection between them at all? I've been wondering. That is The Night Ship. And the last book on this list is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. It's a sapphic vampire historical fantasy romance. I guess that's how I describe it. We follow several women in this book. I wouldn't say there's a very strong plot structure. Like, there's no plot, not really. I mean, there is, but it's more of a flow type of a story. You're just watching these characters live their lives, and this book is literally about these women's lives getting intertwined. You see when and how they become vampires at certain points of their lives, and what made them become vampires, what made them make this decision. And I want to say that this book started out as a 2-star for me, but I ended up rating it 4 stars, I think, or 3.75, around that. And it's just because it grew on me by the end. Like, I was just gradually getting more and more obsessed with the atmosphere, with the characters, with every chapter. And at the end of the story, I was feeling so emotional, and everything suddenly felt so bittersweet, so beautiful, but violent at the same time, and brutal and unfair, but so wonderfully written. I love the writing in this book so much. I think it also helped me kind of get into this book. The writing was such a big part of it. It really made me feel, even though at the beginning I was really bored, but then gradually I was becoming more and more invested in our characters' history, decisions, personalities. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil is so unique to me because it left such a haunting aftertaste. You might think that this book is haunting from the very beginning, but it's nothing compared to the end. I loved the ending. It was a bit shocking, like I said, a bit brutal, but the writing was so magical that it kind of softened everything, but I still teared up because I started feeling so much for one of the main characters by the end. An interesting fact, I would also love to see it on screen. There's nothing official, no official announcement about an adaptation or anything. It's not my favorite book by any means, but it's so haunting, even though it's set in our real world. Yeah, that's why I would also say that it's not really fantasy. It's a more of a magical realism book, I think. That is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Anyway, those are all the books I wanted to talk to you about today. Let me know in the comments whether or not you have read something that feels truly unique to you. And I will see you in the next video.